Dennis Helms, and we are here to represent Bob Salmon today because he is hunting someplace far away and unreachable. So
better hunting than to be hunted.
Yes. And the issue here today is an appeal and possible board action regarding project 2007-047, conditional use permit for Rogers Media. This is an appeal of the Planning Commission's August 21st denial of project 2007-047 for a conditional use permit to erect 3 double-faced billboards along Highway 12 on property located at 1201 Highway 12, approximately 1.5 miles west of the intersection of Highway 12 and Highway 26 in Valley Springs. The subject property is currently zoned M2 General Industrial. A billboard is permitted in the M2 zone with the approval of a conditional use permit. The proposed sign face would measure 16 inches wide, 16 feet wide by 8 feet high, for a total of 128 square feet each. The base of the signs would be 14.5 feet above grade, with an overall height of 25 feet to the top of the structure. The sign faces will be supported by a single center column located 30 feet from the property boundary line that fronts on Highway 12. Now, the Planning Commission considered this use permit in a hearing on August 21st, 2008, and at that time there was a tremendous amount of public controversy. Letters and emails were received, and a number of people presented at the hearing. And that ultimately resulted in the Planning Commission denying the project by a vote of 4-1. And the findings that they made, based principally on the public controversy, were that the proposed land use is not compatible with neighboring land use and zoning. And the second finding was that there were no conditions of project approval that will fully offset possible adverse effects to public health, safety, and welfare, or reduce or eliminate potential environmental effects. And one of the points that was brought forward in the hearing was the fact that the general plan is currently undergoing revision, and work is being done on the Valley Springs community plan as well. And the intention is that each of these documents address billboards in the future, so that people express their concerns at this time that it was fundamentally incompatible. At the time that the appeal was filed, a number of additional letters were received by the Planning Department. Most of those have been included in the packet that you have. Subsequent to issuance of your packet, we did receive 8 additional items of correspondence. There were 7 emails in opposition and 1 in support of the project. I don't have time enough to read them in, but I would like to let you know who these came from. From Jaylene Goltz, a statement in support of the billboards and a notation that not all members of the Valley Springs Business Association oppose the billboards. We received an email from the Kuhn family, a statement in opposition of more billboards in the Valley Springs area. An email from George Nelson, again, restating objections to the proposed billboards on Highway 12. An email from Vicki Henkel, making a statement again in opposition of the billboards. An email from Carl Williams, Valley Springs resident and business owner, stating objections to the billboards. An email from Joe Bocelli in opposition to the billboards. And, the advisory board, Valley Springs Area Business Association, Vic Hale, co-owner, restating their objections to the billboards. And an email from Muriel Zeller, restating their objections to the billboards. Planning staff has prepared a staff report addressing this appeal and bringing forward to you a restatement of the board's conclusions in their hearing, and recommending staff is recommending that the Board of Supervisors deny the appeal of Rogers Media Company and uphold the decision of the Planning Commission denying project 2007-047 conditional use permit for Rogers Media Company. Our staff report also lists alternatives to this action. One of the options would be that the board uphold the appeal of Rogers Media Company and overturn the project denial by the Planning Commission and approve the project subject to the conditions and findings as set forth in the staff report to the Planning Commission. Another option that's listed in this staff report is that the board could uphold the appeal of Rogers Media Company and overturn the project denial by the Planning Commission, but refer the project back to staff and the Planning Commission for consideration of reducing the number, design, or size of the billboards to be permitted on the subject property. And in addition to that staff would like to make at this point in time is that another option that would be available to the board would be to place a term limit on the duration of time that a billboard could be left standing at the proposed site. And I would offer a precedent was set by Planning Commission Resolution number 04 or 05 addressing the placement of the billboard for the Saddle Creek Golf community. And in 2004, this particular use permit that was issued included a condition limiting the duration of the permit, making the statement that it would be valid for 18 months from date of issuance. So that, again, that becomes another option that the board could consider in the review of this project. Do you have any questions that we can answer at this time?
Any questions, board? Thank you. Is there any advice relating to the legal parameters of this discussion? Janice, do you want to give some background on this?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
We're asking for advice from counsel regarding the legal parameters or any information that you wish to inform us on.
I don't have anything to add other than there's a threat of litigation that's been made on this particular project, and based on that threat of litigation, if the board wants to go to a closed session, then I would suggest that that's where we should discuss any issues that come up during the hearing.
All right. Will you advise as this develops as to your wishes in that regard?
If there's a meeting for it, yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. In this case, we'll bring the appellant up to make their case.
I'll try to make this brief. You guys will have a long morning. Mr. Jones, Mr. Lawton, distinguished board. I'd like to introduce myself. First of all, my name is Matt Rogers. I'm the president and CEO of Rogers Media Company. We hail from Davis, California. This is my partner, Mike Jorgensen. He's also here from Lodi, California. I'm going to try to stick to the facts because there has been so much swirl around this project, quite honestly, that I think it would be helpful at this point to really just kind of bear down. And you've had a morning full of swirl, so I'm going to try to just get quickly to the facts so that we can get down to it. First of all, a very quick introduction about our company. We are not a Fortune 500 company. We're a small company. We're family owned. We are a California corporation. We operate in 13 municipalities around California and northern Nevada. I think you'll find, as we said in our planning commission hearing, that the communities that we operate in a lawful, responsible fashion. I'll leave it at that because, again, I don't want to go into hyperbole. I want to describe this project specifically. We didn't come up, we didn't lobby, we've not talked to many of you. I've had a very brief discussion with Supervisor Blavino that I'd like to which he was, I will say, he was more than professional, and I appreciated his courtesy on returning my phone call, and he was very professional in the way that he approached us. Let me say this for the record. Often outdoor advertising companies will attempt to get variances, to skirt laws, to do all kinds of things that perhaps are outside the law. In this case, we came in over 18 months ago on that. We looked at your ordinance, we worked with your planning staff, and we came up with a plan that fits specifically within the guidelines of your ordinance, the ordinance that you, as a staff, as a county, came up with. Your ordinance. Your sizing, your spacing, your zoning, your areas, every specific thing that you wanted, we applied for. Nothing that we are applying for, nothing that we are asking for is outside the rules that you have come up with. In the initial phase, when we were before the Planning Commission, prior to public sentiment, we had a recommendation from planning staff. They recommended the project based on the fact that it met every criteria. Furthermore, on the two criteria that it was denied on, one thing I'd like to mention is the fact that there is no dwelling, no person living, no person using any property near these signs that views these signs from their neighboring property. The only people that view these signs are the motoring public. So as far as upsetting the safety, welfare, aesthetic views or anything else, it's not upsetting any neighboring property. These signs have been compared to the signs that a larger competitor maintains inside Valley Springs. Fact of the matter is, I don't disagree with the public in their sentiments of those signs. They're old, they're wood, in many cases they're not taken care of very well. Not a very good description of our industry there. The fact of the matter is, I can't control that. I can only control what our company does, and we maintain our signs vigorously. These signs will be less than half the size of those signs. They will be steel, they will be of modern construction, and they will be of a material that is of a modern facade. Let's talk about property rights issues for a minute here, because the fact of the matter is that, you know, and let's just get the cat right out of the bag, litigation is potentially an issue here. And the fact of the matter is, because you are limiting, perhaps, if you decide not to uphold our appeal, you not only are limiting our commercial speech issues, you're limiting our non-commercial speech issues. That's going to get you into a problem. In 13 cases in the last 4 years around this country, most recently in the Florida State Supreme Court, when an outdoor advertising company, OGH, applied for outdoor advertising permits under an ordinance, but they were not asking for anything outside the current ordinance, and it was denied. It rose to the level of the Florida Supreme Court. It was overturned based on the fact that they were restricting the outdoor advertising companies who are tax-paying citizens. They were restricting their non-commercial speech rights. It's going to get overturned. Okay? We are a small company, I just told you that, but we are vigorous about defending our rights. And we believe that we have rights here along with the property owner. And so please do not mistake us for somebody small, because again, we will vigorously defend our rights. However, having said all those things, we do operate in communities where we have to listen to the appeal of the people, to hear what they have to say about our projects, to understand that the communities that we operate in, we want to be good neighbors. Fact of the matter is, we've tried to be a good neighbor in this situation. We've tried to be heard. We have tried to be, we've tried to get before George Nelson's group, voted not even to speak in front of his group. I appreciate that, George. And the fact of the matter is, too, whomever, and I will just say this, whoever has chosen to call my home over the last 2 weeks and make threats to me during dinner time, find another hobby, please. Please find another hobby. This is a democratic process, so let's leave it at that. Having said all that, we are interested in a compromise that I think would value the county and value us. And here's what we're willing to do. There has been an outcry in the community based on illumination. That if these signs are illuminated, that there's a dark skies issue. Okay? That that will mar the stars. While we don't agree with that argument, we are sympathetic to that argument. So we would put forward in our proposal that if this project is approved, we will not light these signs as a condition of approval. We will not illuminate them. Quite honestly, the value of such goes down 30% based on the fact that we won't illuminate them. Advertisers kind of like to have the lights on at night, especially if they're a hotel, an eatery, or whatever it is. But you know what? We'll get around that, so we will not light them. We would also look at a compromise of when we did not have advertising sold, we would, at our expense, put Calaveras County businesses on there, promote tourism, a general-wide county outlet as a free service for open space. We would almost, and then please listen to this one, because listen to it carefully. We would also invite the fact of limiting the amount of structures that we build. Instead of building 3, we could build less. Now, financially, we're not going to remit any less to Mr. Gauss, to the property owner. We're going to keep our commitment to him at a current level. Why? You probably really don't care about that, but you know what? That's letting you know that we're not going to redo our agreements with the property owner. We've made a sovereign vow to him to get this done. So we would look at building less structures. Past that, we would be amenable to other things that perhaps that the board could come up with. We would not be interested in anything that limited our number of years on a property. We don't believe that's an enforceable issue, quite honestly. But we would be open to any other suggestions the board has, and we hope that by making this offer a compromise today, that the board will see that we are trying to act in good faith. Understand, though, this offer extends as long as the board upholds it or does not uphold it. If the board chooses not to approve our project and we do get into litigation, we will litigate for the original amount of the project. So I want you to clearly understand what I'm saying. Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead. Mike Gerson, I'm the owner of this company. One additional thing we will issue, or we'll say, is this: we will also not build any other boards anywhere else in the county. We'll make that part of the stipulation. So this will be our only project here. We're willing to work with you, compromise on this project.
In summation, I would say this. Commissioner Mason, in his dissent at the Planning Commission, I think said it best is, I don't understand how we can deny this project. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know that I could have said it any better than that commissioner said it, is that it doesn't make any sense. The aesthetic and safety arguments are no. There's no study that you can put forward that ever said a billboard caused an accident. There's not a safety issue here, especially if we're willing to build less structures to kind of get away from that recurring picket fence item. that may be a situation where we can alleviate that safety issue right there, if there is one to begin with, so.
Thank you. We'll now open this to public comment. If there are members of the public who wish to come forward, please limit your comments to the following: no more than 5 minutes, less if possible. Secondly, do not be redundant. Once it's in the public record, that's good enough. And finally, maintain respect for different opinions. Proceed.
My name's Al Duncan. I'm from Valley Springs. I think you guys probably got some emails from constituents down in the Valley Springs area, as well as these people and the Planning Commission before that. And today, I think you can see the people have spoken. It's a general consensus that we don't want 3 large double-sided billboards. That means 6 large single-sided billboards on one of the entryways to our lovely county. We already have 2 within 2 miles that have been an eyesore for over 30 years that are covered by that confusing oxymoron, legal non-conforming, which makes them damn near impossible to remove without Caltrans widening the highway or a benevolent county or state buying the property and removing them to the pleasure of most Valley Springs residents. We the people have come here today to exercise our right to protect this harbinger of many more similar issues that will try to disturb the rural and peaceful serenity of our lovely county. This is not meant to sound like a no-growth issue. Hell, I'm a realtor and a commercial property owner. But this is to provide a guideline for good conservatorship of the county that you folks have been elected and entrusted to preserve. As this county grows more populated, there will be many coming here who are used to sandwich boards, banners, and illuminated billboards. But as you can see, we the people have come here to have a voice in the decision-making of our county, and we hope to have come here to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah McDaniel, a business owner in Valley Springs area. I did send an email to the board, and I'm not going to actually go over that again because it's in the public record and you've all read it. But the reason that I'm here is I'm wanting to make an appeal to the landowner and the proponent of this billboard project. We know that you do not live in this community. And we also know that you have probably read all of the emails and the letters that have been sent to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors regarding this project. We also know that you have heard the many citizens speak on behalf of their community regarding this project. We can only surmise that you don't care what the community thinks or how concerned we are about the impacts of these billboards on our community. Now, I believe in property rights also, but some things are bigger than that issue also. This is a bigger issue than the grotesque billboards that you want to put in our community. This is a bigger issue than the check you're going to receive every month or every year. This is a bigger issue than the potential hundreds of thousands of dollars that Rogers Media will receive every year. Although I do acknowledge they sound like a very reputable and responsible company. This is about a community that doesn't want the blight of these kinds of billboards. We believe this will negatively impact our local economy because they distract from our scenic highways and potential tourism dollars. We have asked that you allow us to please complete our general and community plans so we could determine what kind of signage we want to fit into our authentic Gold Rush era landscape. Clearly, what Mr. Rogers described is contrary to what authentic Gold Rush area landscape is. We are asking you voluntarily to withdraw your request for the conditional use permit and revisit it when we have completed our plans for our community. Is this about money? Yes, it is. Lots of money for you, and potentially a loss of money for our community and our county. We will lose part of what makes us unique, and we will lose part of our vision for our scenic highways as you enter Calaveras County from the west end. I would like to address this to the Board of Supervisors. This is exactly one of the reasons why so many volunteers are working hard to get our community plans ready to present to you for approval. There's been issues in the past where other groups have been not listened to because their plans have not been approved yet. But I think, I'm speaking for myself now, I think it's very important that we not act on this issue at this time until we have a chance to actually finish those. The San Andreas Community Plan is just about ready to be submitted to the county. The Valley Springs Community Plan is coming right along, and citizens are working very hard on this. I again appeal to the proponent of the project to please care about what this community is, the people of these communities care about. I say this respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind people to sign their names into the record there.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Greg Thompson. I'm the owner of the new shopping center at the corner of Highway 26 and Vista de Lago Terrace. So, as I'm listening to the arguments, obviously we have emotion and we have logic, and so I'd like to address it from a business standpoint. First we took we spent millions of dollars constructing the project, and then we moved into phase 2, which was finding quality tenants, and now we're kind of moving into phase 3, which is the promotion of that complex. And I got to tell you, it's a little difficult. We are in a rural community. We don't have access to the mix of advertising, radio, newspaper, television. We don't have access to that. We don't have billboards for the most part. The last speaker spoke of the fact that these new billboards are inconsistent with our gold country status or look. Well, isn't that what the existing 30-year-old ones look like now? And we're complaining about those as well. They're consistent with Gold Rush era, but yet we don't like those either. So we've been doing a tremendous amount of marketing for the shopping center. We've been putting flyers in the local newspaper, and we've had some response to that. And we've got a small little radio station that we're willing to put our ads on. But for the most part, that's about what we're limited to. And as we know, the objective here is to succeed. And we've got tenants that are doing a great job and are hardworking people, but they're struggling because of the economy. And it's very, very difficult to get the word out that we exist. If you're traveling on Highway 12, what do we use to tell people to turn right 2 miles to Vista de Lago? What tools do we have available to us? We talk about tourism. Well, the tourists aren't reading our local newspapers. They're driving to the lake. And how do we then communicate to those people that we've got resources that would benefit them after being on the lake? We have juice or coffee or restaurants or whatever it is. So from a business standpoint, outdoor makes sense in our rural community. Everybody's panicking about the size, but to put it in perspective, a billboard that you see on the freeway is 672 square feet, 14 feet by 48 feet. What you see in town, the 30-year-old rustic ones, are 300 square feet. They're 12 by 25. These are proposed at 128 square feet. Now, if I came in with a 128 square foot banner and held it up in this room, we'd all panic. But you take that out and put it out in the middle of nowhere, and it shrinks dramatically. So I don't think size is really the issue. I don't think the aesthetic of it. I like the idea that it's going to be a modern monopole structure. We don't have to worry about old structures, in years to come. But at the same time, we have to be realistic in the fact that from a business standpoint, there's a need. And I think you guys really heard that cry when all of the little lean-tos disappeared. When that ordinance came about and everybody had to disappear their way of communicating with the travelers by putting their little signs. And it was getting kind of, out of control as far as how many were out there. But that should also tell you that there's a need. We had, businesses that claim to be suffering because they can't put their sign out on the street.
So I think there's a need for outdoor. I think these guys have done a great job of telling you that they're not here to proliferate. I mean, what I'm hearing is if we let one in, there's going to be 100. Well, that's not the case. I mean, from an ordinance standpoint, if you took and we laid out a county map of the entire county of Calaveras, and you color-coded every M2 zone in the county, that then would house a billboard through visibility. If there's a tree on the property, then that was out. You end up with about a half a dozen locations, and that's in the entire county. And these guys are willing to even give up those. And that doesn't mean that all 6 property owners would even say yes to it. You know, so it's an emotional deal. I think it's way blown out of proportion, but I think from a business standpoint, those on the 26 side like us, we would love to have the opportunity to advertise and to let people know that we've got businesses on the other side. I mean, you know, it's all about the dollars. It's all about succeeding in this particular market. So as much as it is emotional, there still has to be a level of logic, and they do meet the code. They meet the criteria. So based on the law, it seems like these guys should be allowed. Based on emotion, I think that's secondary. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the previous 2 speakers have spoken about money a little bit, so I will as well. My name is Corey Burnell. I'm representing the Calaveras County Taxpayers Association on this issue, and a couple of our other board members are here today. I think they might talk as well. The CCTA's position is not one of liking or disliking billboards for the rest of you in the room. I will just want to make that clear. Our position relates to 2 issues. One being property rights of the landowner, and the other issue being the potential cost or loss of tax revenue to the county in denying the project. So in discussing the property rights of Mr. Gauss, it's quite obvious that denial of the project is a violation of those rights. The question before us in the debate is whether the violation of his property rights is justified. And that is to be determined, I guess, by the discussion here. On a financial front, we're concerned about the threat of litigation to the county and the potential cost to the county there, both the cost of litigation, but also should the county lose that battle. We understand that this is a $3 million project, if we're not mistaken, and that the potential damages could well exceed that in the way of if we were to lose that lawsuit. So with a multi-million-dollar figure hanging over the county, that definitely is an issue taxpayers are concerned about. Also, the delay in property taxes, the increase in assessed value of Mr. Gauss' property, as well as the property taxes that the billboards themselves will be paying. That's lost revenue to the county, or at least delayed. Eventually, it looks like, from what we're hearing, Rogers Media has a pretty good case, and so eventually the billboards might be there anyway, in which case we may be paying damages significantly as a county, and then in addition to that, we will simply delay the additional property tax revenue. So we want to put that before you and have you consider that. Denial of the project likely accomplishes a very bad risk reward scenario for the taxpayers of this county.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question to Mr. Burnell.
Yes, proceed.
I apologize if I've overlooked the reference to a $3 million project in the staff report. Where did that figure come from?
The $3 million figure came from our due diligence and discussions with Matt Rogers of Rogers Media. If I'm mistaken on that figure, is that the correct figure?
Yes.
Cool.
Is that the I don't know, present value of future earnings, or I mean, it certainly couldn't be $3 million worth of construction costs.
Yeah, I'll have to defer to Mr. Rogers to answer your question on that.
Thank you.
My name is Nicole Brielle. I just want to add a little bit to what Corey just said. I was born here. I was raised here. I don't want the billboards. Really, I didn't want Marbella to go in, or Taco Bell, or anything in Valley Springs. I wish my town population was 500 again. But the fact of the matter is, stuff is going in, and we can't really fight that. The only thing we can do is say, no, we won't regulate it, or we won't allow it. And then what happens is these billboards pop up that are popping up in Valley Springs on tires that they can roll away and then roll back in. And really, I don't know if you've seen them, but they just kind of plaster banners on them. You know, I do prefer rolling hills, but we can't have rolling hills forever. And so if we're going to put something there, I would prefer it be professional billboards rather than, you know, the ugly metal buildings that we have and the other things that are popping up around us.
Thank you.
My name is Kevin Bos. I'm one of the co-owners of the property. Jeff Johnson also owns the property with us. I was here for the Planning Commission's meeting a while back, and I wanted to address a couple of things. Number one, in the case of before this, specifics were asked for, and if those specifics were met, it would be easier to make a decision. Well, the specifics have been met in our case. The property zoning, the requirements and the ordinances on the size of the signs as such have all been met. So seems to me that it would be easy to make a decision. The issue keeps coming up on two-sided signs. I have right here a lot of different pictures of billboards that are existing within our county that are only one-sided. So if you're driving down the road one way, it looks, you see the advertisement. If you come from the other direction, you see the back of the billboard. So I don't see a fight on a two-sided sign. It doesn't matter if the billboard company gets separate advertising monies for that. Appearance-wise, which you want to hear, or we're hearing from a lot of people that would be ugly. That's not going to be the case with these signs. Something I haven't heard anybody mention yet. I know there's special privilege to political people in politics, like with their signs. Zero McDaniel just made a comment. I wish he was here to hear it. I do care about this community, and I do live in this community. I live in Copperopolis. I put every dime I own into my home in Copperopolis, which is in Calaveras County, obviously, and the property that we own in Valley Springs, as well as our business. We're a hard-working, family-owned company and trying to put our property, which is just used right now currently, for our yard. Another thing I never heard anybody mention was all the years that was a junkyard. You know, that was the letters that we have from different emails that were sent in talk about how ugly the signs are, this or that. Nobody mentioned how ugly that property was before we purchased it, and have continued to make it more curb appeal. We put in drip irrigation systems. We're getting ready to plant some plants along the coast, so it's not such an eyesore. And nobody mentioned the 57 political signs from Highway 26 in Valley Springs up to the end of 12 here. There's also a truck out there, a crane, about approximately 40 foot up in the air, has an arm with one of the people running for supervisor's name on the board, how much higher they can take Calaveras County. I'm not going to play tit for tat. I got photos if you'd like to see them of all the different signage. There's 2 sets, so it could go faster if you'd like to see them. So what Matt Rogers with Rogers Media is asking for is nothing more than what's already in place here with other billboards. So that just, I know there's probably special privilege for the political signs, and that's what struck me when Zero McDaniels made that comment. I do care about this community. I chose this community to live in. I've been here since 1992 and intend to be here for as long as the good Lord lets me. In one of the papers that was put out by it says County of Calaveras, State of California Planning Commission. I'm going to refer to your numbers that came back, and it talks about in newspaper articles how overwhelming response. Overwhelming to me means great numbers. The population sign in Valley Springs reads 7,500 and something. So for round figures, let's use 7,600 people. There was 10 speakers here at the Planning Commission's meeting last time, and you list here as 77 items of correspondence in opposition via emails that were in the packet. I've got just a few here that people only talked about lighting issues, They didn't say much about the billboards other than they didn't want them lit. There's some here that talk about we can't meet the size requirements, which we can. But if you get back to these numbers, the overwhelming response that they put in the paper, that's less than 1% of the population of Valley Springs. That's not so overwhelming if you're running for a political office. You would hope to get a lot more than 1%, I would think, or you would be hoping for. So I wanted to kind of compare apples to apples there. Like I said, some of these issues here, I'm trying to go fast because I know there's other people that want to talk. Lady made a comment, I forgot your name, I'm sorry, but about billboards on trailers, how they can duck in and duck out and duck around all over the place. Again, Rogers Media up front has done everything that has been asked by this county, filled out every piece of paper, done everything we're supposed to, and that's why we're back here again today. Let's see here. Okay, the other issue was, and you listed this as evidence, and I'd like to ask where the Planning Commission got their evidence, that the billboards would be a distraction for motorists, creating a safety and driving hazard. Additionally, it said the signs would disrupt the visual appeal of the community's rural atmosphere, creating an adverse impact. And like we just talked, nobody from Quail Oak subdivision will be able to see these signs. As if you've all driven out there and seen our property, that the railroad track was behind it, so it's kind of like a wall shielding it from the people behind us. But I've never seen any reports on how many accidents are created or caused by billboards. And for crying out loud, if there's that many, there's a whole bunch of signs you can see in these photographs as you're looking, as you drive through Valley Springs, San Andreas, our community as a whole in Calaveras County. So I think that argument could very well be thrown out. Something else that wasn't brought up, was brought up at the Planning Commission, was right now currently CBS is the only billboard company that's in our location. Business owners deserve competition. I like competition for one, and I'll speak about that in a second. But right now CBS has the monopoly. Media Rogers comes in, and he's already, he talked about he has a less expensive advertising. I mean, he can compete with CBS's pricing. Now, who in business doesn't want to shop for the best price? We also hear the fight about billboards that advertise out of our county. People want advertising to be strictly in our county. I'm a service provider within our county, and I see lots of vehicles in and out of our county that are from other areas. Why? Because America's about competition. Either they found a better product, they found a better price. So why should that actually be limited to the advertising as well as people? Some of these people, I guarantee you, that say they only want advertisers to be in Calaveras County, they use outside sources from our county for parts of their services. But Matt Rogers has already addressed that and said if you guys wanted to, or only Calaveras County ads, then that they would work with that. People, the First Amendment right, and is why we can able to write in newspapers and such. I want to address the Little Valley Springs newspaper that sells for 25 cents. In here, they kind of litter on a stick is their terminology they're using for billboards. Well, I'm not going to play a tit for tat. He does a lot of advertising in the Little Valley Springs newspaper, and he makes remarks in here as Matt Rogers Media wants to only make $1. I don't know how many of you go to work with anything else on your mind. We're all out to earn income. So is the Valley Springs newspaper, which does a lot of advertising. And I personally advertise in this paper as well. So some of these things can just continue to be shut down. Our property, we have over 3,000 feet of frontage, highway frontage. So meeting the standards of the 300 foot per sign, that wasn't going to be any problem to do. And again, the rights of a property owner. I'm here, I purchased the property, I paid the tax on the property, and I'd like to use it for its full potential. That's what I'm asking for here today. I think that's just about it. Yeah, some more comments just in the newspaper. by George Nelson. Valley Springs businessman said that the town already has 2 ugly billboards, which 20-year eyesores. The business business community, he said, opposes the erection of any more signs. That makes it sound like 100% of the business community is against any more advertising, which is not true. We have people here from the business community in Valley Springs, and because this was supposed to be heard at 9:30, and I know it went late, a lot of those people had to leave as well. Lots of money is spent on advertising. People want to know who we are, which politician to vote for, which business to go to, which restaurant to go to. And remember, these businesses that are in Valley Springs, they employ people that live in Valley Springs, Jane Lynn, Milton, wherever they live. They support and put money back into our community. So, you know, I'm asking the board to consider what we're asking for. We're not asking for above and beyond. We're just asking for what your ordinance say we can have. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, and Alice Gallen, President of the Calvert Taxpayer Association. In my former speaking, I was speaking as the president, and those remarks were approved by the Board of Directors. The Board of Directors also approved this, and Corey Brunel is our chairman for this project. Incidentally, Corey Brunel is a supporter of private property rights, and he lives in Valley Springs. That's pretty notable. There seem to be 2 issues, property rights issues. One is the property rights of the landowner. The other one is the right of free speech. Free speech is 2 types. There's commercial and there's personal. I don't know if political is another type or not. But let's think out of the box a little bit, if we can. Let's suppose that the state constitution, like the federal constitution is supposed to do, actually prevents local government from allowing a group of people to tell another what a person can do on their property. In other words, it would be illegal for signs to be banned. If it were illegal for signs to be banned, then we would find solutions a different way. Let's explore this a little bit. There are people, including me, that would not like to see good billboards in certain areas. Other areas are not so important. This particular place is pretty good for billboards because it's not ruining the horizon or view shed. The first thing we would do, we people who want to have less billboards, would be to get together and raise some funds. You might be able to get a lot of people and also raise a lot of money. Environmentalists do it all the time. Billions and billions of dollars. Think about it a little bit. Have you ever heard of the term easements? Tom has. Okay. Why not offer in certain areas easements? Pay the landowner money to just not have a billboard there. The owner gets money. The proponents of having no billboards are happy, and the government's not even involved. That's thinking out of the box. That's not where we're at. Where we are now is the potentiality of maybe not $3 million, but $9 million. If there's triple damages, it would be $9 million. But there's good news there, because the people who are opposing the billboards are basically good people. That means that they would not want to see the taxpayers hit with $9 million. They'd chip in. Might be 100 of them. 100 people, that's only $90,000 each. Such a deal. Thank you.
I've already signed in. My name is Jeff Johnson, co-owner of the property down at Valley Springs. I wasn't going to speak today. I was going to let Kevin do it all. But when the lady got up here and said we're not locals, well, I'm not from Valley Springs. I consider Calaveras County. If you're from Calaveras County, we're local. We're together. We're all Calaveras County. I've lived here since 1962, the year I was born. I've had the opportunities all throughout my life to leave this county. I chose not to. I love this county. There's nobody that loves this county more than I do. I feel, as a property owner, we do have our rights to do what we want to do. What's gonna happen if somebody buys 200 acres next to you and want to raise cattle on it, and now somebody says, oh, we don't want cattle on it, it stinks. You're gonna make money on your cattle. Well, is that right? I don't think so. As a property owner, people should be able to do what they want with their property. The lady also said that they're out to make money on the property. The money we make on this property is gonna be nominal. Maybe pay property taxes for the year on it, as far as Kevin and I go. But how many people in this room, how many people in this county buy rental houses every day for investments in the property, to make money, to sell? Now that the market's down and it's cheap right now, they're gonna buy these houses cheap, and in 5 years from now, when the market's back up, they're gonna sell that house for a profit. They're buying that property to make a profit. Should they be told you can't do that? You can't make money on your property? There's been a lot of people who spend a lot of money in this county, buying, selling property, and making money off the property. So I don't feel that should be an issue whatsoever. But anyway, it just aggravates me when somebody says you're not a local person. By God, I feel like I'm a local person. Been here a long time. In my business, somebody will say, how long you lived here? I'll say 46 years. Really? I didn't know anybody from here. You know, so I really care about this community, and I just want everybody to know that.
My name is Joyce Teckle. I've lived here for about 30 years. I'm a business operator, a landowner. And one statement about political signs, I'm really tired of them. The good thing about political signs, they get taken down before the end of November. Now, to the board. I would encourage the board to please consider all your legal options for denying this billboard application and appeal, and upholding the Planning Commission decision. Please consider the following. Number one, the board could use their discretion and deny the billboard project on the grounds that the county has an inadequate general plan, and we are well into the process of updating our general plan and our community plans. The board could at least delay the project because of these circumstances. Number two, the board can point out that the general plan does not meet statutory requirements, is currently being updated, and that a community plan update for Valley Springs has been funded that can run concurrently with the general plan update. I'm referring to the Caltrans grant that was recently granted to COG that will fund the Valley Springs community plan. Approving the billboards while a community plan update is in progress is contrary to the public's interest and stated goals for the community. Valley Springs community plan update efforts have been ongoing for over a year, and the community has presented workshop summaries and visions to the county. Billboards are not consistent with draft vision statements for the community from the Valley Springs Area Business Association and the Greater Valley Springs Advisory Group. New billboards would also preclude implementation of draft community goals and visions from the October 7th Valley Springs Community Design Workshop Summary, which is what my handout covered. There's a map in there that notes green belts and so on that were noted, and it also marks where the proposed billboards are going to be located. There's also a note on the front page, maintain Highway 12 view corridor heading east into downtown, add trees, improve entry statement into downtown. I was very pleased to hear that the gentleman who owns this truck yard there is going to be planning additional landscaping. New billboards would also preclude implementation from the draft community goals and visions of the October 7th Valley Springs Community Design Workshop. These recommendations call for green belts, buffer zones, and improved entry and view corridor. Number three, the board has enacted other interim policies to forestall development that would preclude planning options and that goes against interim policies and direction from the board. They could do so again in this case. The billboards are contrary to draft vision and guiding principles proposed for the Calaveras County General Plan Update. The draft vision states, quote, the historical character of the county's communities and the value of its productive resources and the distinction of its physical beauty will continue to create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable and memorable experience for visitors to the county. Billboards do not fit with, quote, historical character, or, quote, productive resources, or, quote, physical beauty. Please consider these and other legitimate legal findings in order to uphold the Planning Commission's wise decision to deny these billboards. Thank you.
Thank you. I was expecting you sooner or later.
I've already found it. I figured. That's a long day after another long.
Actually, even though you did
But
before, you need
I
to
will.
stay
I'll get
here.
there, I promise. My name is Darrell West. I live at 101 Melcher Lane, Burson, Valley Springs, postal address. My phone number is 772-0225. I always give it. And if anybody calls me during dinner hour, they will get whatever response they merit. I'm concerned about something, and it's partially related to the billboard, so I'm speaking to that. I personally was horrified to think that there would be 3 giant lighted billboards at the entrance to Valley Springs. I was bothered. It sounds like the advertisers are willing to modify that down to 2 or possibly even 1. They said they'd reduce the number. They said they would not like them. Both were issues to me. If, in accordance with something they said, that they might be willing to further modifications, possibly designing the framework of the signs so that they would meet more of the Gold Rush era style of the area. That would be helpful. I think that given an alternative, they will sue. I think that based on what I've read, they have extremely strong standing in the court, and we'll end up with 3 signs lighted 6 sides. Given the choice, I would rather work with them and work out a compromise. Possibly smaller signs, smaller number signs, not lighted, designed more in the decor of the area. The thing I found bothersome about some of the folks here, and I know that some of the folks here have disagreed with me in very strong terms and language, and that makes it fun. But some of the folks here play a zero-sum game. They want it their way, and no way anyone will oppose them. It is zero-sum. They want it all or nothing. They play the game in that respect with the golf course. They're playing the game with the times. They want everything absolute. And they're unwilling to even meet with in this case, the advertisers in advance of today's meeting. The group has refused to meet with the people who are building the golf course or developing the golf course, even though they've been invited multiple times. They are unwilling to discuss compromise. You know, we live in a real world, and sometimes when we're growing up as children, we have to learn to compromise. I think it's about time some of those folks learn to compromise also. And you have options open to you today that are reasonable, they make sense, and they make sense in a sense with regard to profit to the property owner. Profitability to local businesses who can advertise, and aesthetic characteristics that are reasonable. I think those are options for compromise that I haven't heard the other side say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Haley. I'm from Wallace, and I'm one of the public who spoke to the Planning Commission August 21st to protest more billboards in our county. I was one of many that day. The Planning Commission listened, and in my opinion, they got it right and said no. Now, billboards haven't gotten prettier in the time that has passed. I am a motoring public, and I've lived in this county for 25 years. I do wonder what the percentage of local businesses that advertise on these new billboards, because as you approach our county, one sees many ads encouraging you to hurry up the hill to the wonders that they have. In view of all the work that has gone into the vision of what many people want this area to become, and as well as the input that the public is making for the general plan, we have continually said that we don't want to see more billboards, and we should have rights too. Rogers Media has the right to ask to come into this county, but you have a right to say thanks, but no thanks, because it is our county, and we do not have to bow to threats. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm George Nelson. I'm a business owner in Valley Springs, plus the chairperson for the Valley Springs Area Business Association, which we have 122 members from Wallace to San Andreas. And over 60% of those members oppose this conditional use permit. I'm only going to briefly talk about Title 17.82. Says the purpose of a conditional use permit is to provide the general public with the opportunity to review the proposal land use that is generally consistent with the purpose of a base zoning district that has potential to cause conflict with neighboring land uses and zoning, that a conditional use permit is a discretionary permit, not a given. To approve this, you have to find that the use is consistent with the county general plan and the applicable community plan, which it is not. The proposed land use with neighboring land use and zoning, which it is not. This is a rural residential area and neighborhood. Conditions of approval for potential protection of public health, safety, and welfare. We feel the 3 billboards in a row will be a distraction to drivers at that part of the highway and adversely affect public safety due to the visual impact of 3 billboards to motorists in succession. The Highway 12 is one of our gateway highways to Calaveras County and the Valley Springs. We have been working with the code enforcement as an association to clean up our signs that are non-conforming and are having trouble with the billboards on wheels, which you've already heard about. They pop up every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and go back into hiding on Monday. They move into the highway on weekends, and they put them at major intersections. And in light of all of this situation and the general plan update, it is proposed this business association that you will deny these billboard permits, or at the very least postpone approving them until after the general plan has been updated and we see what will happen in that area of Title 17. As a business association, we understand how important advertising is for business, but there must be an update of Title 17 about the distance between signs, height, size, design, illumination to maintain the quality of our life in our area. Thank you. Back to you.
My name is Stephen Ventress, and I'm here to speak on behalf of a local business. I grew up in this community and been here since I was young. And when I first came, I was mostly compelled to come and speak on behalf of Rogers Media and also the owner of the land, basically because I feel that the Planning Commission denying this was denying them their right, the owner's right to make money and make their right to profitability based on their assets. But what I've heard a lot since I've been sitting here is that these billboards don't fit the general plan. They don't fit the plan of the community. A lot of people are saying that the gold rush era, that's what we want to promote, that our town, our community is in a gold rush era. Well, what would the purpose of that be other than to promote tourism? Well, I mean, you want people to come in and do business here. How are they going to do business with people that they don't even know exist? It's why advertising exists, is to promote your company and bring more profitability to your business. I mean, just like Kevin said, it's like anybody works to make a dollar. And I think that what this is doing is denying them that ability to do that. It's his property, and it's also it's his right to be able to do this. I think that as a business, Rogers Media has been very accommodating, very willing, obviously, as he proved by standing up here and saying that he's willing to compromise. He's willing to make the changes that the community has said that they most strongly disagree with. I was able to speak with one of the people that was on that planning commission before today, and she was here earlier and had to leave because of how long the first issue went. But that person felt as though that if this was brought again to the planning commission, that they would make a different decision, because she, as one of the people that voted against this, felt as though she was not provided with the correct information to make the best possible vote for her opinion. She didn't feel like she was given all the information that was needed. And my personal opinion would be to turn the appeal back over to them, like was said earlier, as one of the board's options today, because I feel like now that all the information has been provided, that they would be able to make a better and right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Masters. Born and raised in this Valley Springs. Second generation, actually. Not some people can say that. And I came up here in support of Kevin Goss and his landowner rights. I sent the board of supervisors an email to that effect. And to be honest with you, I don't want to see the billboards either. I don't want to see. I didn't want to see Marvell. I don't want to see any of these, major building going on up here, because I was born here. I used to ride my bike to the local pharmacy, talk to the pharmacist, and get a soda. It was like Mayberry, and eventually that's where I want to move to, is Mayberry, and go back to that simple way of life. But the fact of the matter is, it's not going to ever go back to that. We're not a little town anymore. There's 7,500 people in Valley Springs. I remember the sign said 500 for years, and then they bumped it to 75 just recently. So we grew by 7,000 people in like 24 hours. It was amazing. But the fact of the matter is you know, I believe in landowner's rights. I believe that he has a right to do his property what he wishes within the laws that are set forth, and he has a right to that zoning, and his appeal is valid. I think that the tax dollars that will be collected from this project, something the county needs. When we just talked about a jail, we need more law enforcement officers. We need these services. We need more industry here to support these 7,500 people that are in Valley Springs, plus the rest of the county. You know, we need to look at progressive ways to deal with that. And if it's billboards entering the town, I feel for those people down on Highway 26. I drive past them all the time, and I don't see a lot of people in the parking lot. And will the billboards help that? Probably. You know, if they get one. So I just want to give you my thoughts on that. I do support the project. I am also a member of the Valley Springs Area Business Association, and I can understand their concerns. I can understand what we want to have as a community, but the fact of the matter is I don't think we can control it. And even with the plan that we put forth, people's rights are people's rights. And Rogers Media sounds like a pretty reputable company, and a company that I would like to deal with, and a company that has basically said they don't want to deal with the county anymore. They said they won't put any more billboards up here if they get this one through, and that's sad. I think that that's the kind of company that you want to deal with if we're putting billboards in the county, and they will come. And I think you might want to sit down with them and say, hey, these are the areas that are zoned, or the landowners if they're looking at projects. You might want to get the people involved ahead of time, because that sounds like a company you want to deal with. Illumination in that area, I don't know what the problem is there. There's nothing out there. It's not going to change the night sky where I live. It's not going to change the night sky in Quail Oaks or even in Valley Springs. I don't see what the problem is there. And as far as the shipping yard goes, it does look a lot better than it was a junkyard, but it looked better probably with billboards on it than it does looking at his truck. So, to be honest with you, you know, if you want to go as far as saying you can't have billboards, you might want to tell them you can't have his trucks. It looks right for Calaveras County. I don't think you can do it. So that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Hello again. I can still see one. This is the reason that I came in this morning. My wife and I moved into this community about 20 years ago. So I haven't been here as long as some people, but I have been in this county for over 20 years. We bought a small ranch, and we lived down in the Wallace area. We were drawn to this community because of the ruralness, because of the aesthetics, the way it looked, the climate, the people, on and on and on. We have a ranch, we have horses, and that's why we were drawn up into this area. And this area has grown over the last 20 years. We made a decision to move a little bit deeper into the county 6 or 8 years ago, get a little bit more land, it's a little bit more rural, because that's what we enjoy. We like having nothing around us, and we enjoy it very much. I also have a business in this community. I did open up a business in the Vista Del Lago Terrace Shopping Center about a year ago, 8 months ago, and it is a new business, and new businesses take time to grow and to get off the ground, and I was fully aware of that when I opened up the business. Obviously wasn't planning on the economy turning south, but it did. But you know, all that being said, having access to advertising or media is something that shouldn't be restricted from businesses. It's something that should be encouraged in moderation. And I think we have an excellent opportunity to use this situation to set standards for the entire county over the next several years. We have all these different planning things going on to try and bring people up to speed and readjust and do things new and kind of step us all into the 21st century, and that's great. That's what we ought to do. But you know, these guys, from what little I know about them, have gone way out of their way to go the extra mile to try and provide not only billboards that are going to be aesthetically pleasing, as aesthetically pleasing as a billboard can go, but going way above and beyond by working with the community and saying we won't even light them at night, which from my perspective isn't isn't smart, but, I can understand why, why people are against it, and I can understand why they're offering to do it. So I think you should reconsider the appeal. I think that they ought to be granted the permit to set this up, and we ought to use this as an opportunity to set standards for the rest of the county. So as things continue to grow, which they're going to do, we can look back at this business model and say, hey, this is what we want, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it this way, and emulate that throughout the rest of the county. Thank you.
I'm Bob Mulvaney, and I'd like to speak to you as a former planning commissioner. I don't know what they were thinking when they voted this thing down. The council will correct me if I'm in error, but it's not their prerogative to deny a permitted use. It seems to me that they can put conditions on the use, but they were in violation of the zoning to do this. And how could they do that? And it seems that they were so far off base. Our Constitution was written to protect the rights of the individual, equal protection under the law, and to protect individuals from the tyranny of the majority or wherever else it comes from. I think that this applicant has done everything right, only to be turned down. And how can they do that? Thank you.
My name is Holly Mines, and I too would like to speak to you as a former planning commissioner. I think that we just heard language from the code which describes what a conditional use permit is, and it is defined as a discretionary permit, which means that it does not have to be granted. So on that basis, the Planning Commission decided that it didn't meet the how should I say, sort of parameters of current planning, and they therefore denied it. And I will also note this morning, when the planning staff presented their brief report, they recommended denying the appeal of Rogers Media. So there must be some basis in law for that, or they wouldn't do it. The second thing, which I don't want to belabor because I think the point has been made, is that we are in the process of revising our general plan. And I personally have spoken to a planner, not a Calaveras County planner, but a planner and a land use attorney, asking if it is legitimate in a case like this to put off or deny such a permit. And both have told me that it is very common in the process of doing a general plan revision for the Planning Commission and or the Board of Supervisors to deny permission at the time when a new plan is being designed. I think that's a completely legitimate exercise of the authority of the government to say, we're in a process now. If we allow these signs to be put up, the gentleman said the one compromise he would not make was to accept some kind of temporary permission for this sign. And so he wants the sign up and wants it to stay. If in the process of redoing the general plan, it's decided that billboards are not a desirable way to advertise in this county, and the plan is designed in that way, there will be no recourse after that. So I think both of those justify the consideration of this appeal and the possible denial of it. The last thing I want to say is that I attended one of the workshops or a presentation by the consultants who were hired in Angels Camp to come up with a plan for the development of Angels Camp. And I went to the one where it was early on, and he had sent a team of people in to Angels Camp to take photographs and to look at the town and get a sense of where it was now and where it might go. The very first thing that he showed, the first two things he showed, one was a big, pretty ugly sign that it did say "Welcome to Angels Camp," and it had all these signs like for the Rotary Club and the Benefit Club and the farmers and all this kind of stuff. But he said, if you had something that was subtle and attractive, that would be one thing, but you're not really welcoming people from outside into your town when there's no gateway, there's no recognizable entry into the town, and a lot of the signs that he showed in his presentation had brush around them and things like that. So he was saying.
When you talk, so shut up. Thank you.
I will ask people to keep order, and I remind people that listening to opinions different than your own doesn't mean you have to be audibly rude at the time of the presentation.
Anyway, his point was, the other sign that he showed was a great big sign of the frog jump. And he also said that he thought it was a really ugly sign. So if those are the kinds of things that you're trying to sell your town on, he said that wasn't the right way to do it. He said what you're trying to do is create an ambiance, set the scene so that there's a number of restaurants and there's a number of destinations and there's a feeling about coming into the town that feels really good. There's adequate parking. It's off to the side. He gave many, many guidelines. But the one thing that he didn't recommend was to advertise your town and your activities in your town by big billboards. And I would also note that Murphy's is a very, very successful town. And I don't see signs for all the restaurants as I'm going up Highway 4. And people swarm into those restaurants. So they must find a way to get customers. And it may be because they have good food and they're located in a really attractive place, and people have heard about them, and they get written up in places like AAA magazine and Sunset magazine and all that kind of thing. So I do think to say that if you don't have billboards, you can't have business in a community is not correct. And I'll leave it at that because I think the other points have been made. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak before this gets remanded to the board? Mr. Mulvaney, you've already spoken.
Well, that's she did allude to something I said that you can't deny it because the rules may change down the line. There's other ex post facto laws that you can't pass a law making someone guilty of something that was legal when they did it. And we're a nation of laws, and if somebody obeys the law, that he should not be denied his rights and privileges under that law.
Distinguished board, my name is Jim Reed. I've been a resident of this county for 22 years. I've heard a lot of comments and mainly personal opinions here today. And I don't really think this is a matter of a personal opinion here. This advertising company went to the planning commission, from what I understand. They submitted their plans, they did everything by the letter of your laws. And in fact, it was recommended by the planning commission, the planning board, that you approve it. I don't really remember how many billboards have been approved by the board of supervisors, in our county. I know of a lot of billboards that have went up down on, for instance, Highway 4 down there in Copperopolis. I don't believe that there was any process like this at that time as far as approving or disapproving those billboards down there. And unsightly is is not, that's not just the matter here. Unsafe as far as some of the way the signs down there were built. And the thing is, you know, I know what type of billboard that people are going to build down here in Valley Springs. I don't believe they're an eyesore. I pass that way. I live in this county. I live right up from San Andreas. And I just don't see the eyesore. Like I said, I understand people have a right to their own opinions. And in my opinion, I'm in support of these outdoor advertising structures. I see nothing wrong. When the permit was applied for, this wasn't a law that could be denied. In fact, it was all approved. And now, as far as when I hear something like, well, let's delay this, and we'll actually come up with a general plan, and then we'll outlaw it, that's shady politics. I'm sorry, I don't approve of stuff like that in this county or any other county. Face it, our government, state, local, federal, you know, they've got to get away from stuff like that. That shady stuff is why people don't trust our government. And that's what that reminds me of when I hear that, well, let's delay this, let's table it until we can come up with something a little more substantial to deny it. So I hope you reconsider this appeal here today. And like I said, I just think it's pretty ridiculous that you know, when somebody comes into our county and they want to advertise, or somebody comes into our county and in support of the businesses. And another thing is, I heard how billboards don't help anybody. You know, I see all the Moaning Cavern billboards all over our county, and I want you to tell me, or tell Moaning Caverns, or that they haven't helped them. Moaning Caverns doesn't do a lot of advertising. California Caverns is the same thing. And I know a lot of people have been directed and know where Moaning Caverns is, and in fact have put it on the map because of those outdoor advertising structures. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to this subject? All right. At this point, I would ask the Deputy County Counsel whether the discussion of possible lawsuits would require a closed session of the board to discuss. Some people have said it has merit, some people may differ. Is that something you wish to discuss before we take action? I know we can't call a closed session today.
Obviously, that's up to the board. We have to continue this to have a closed session for 2 weeks, unless you want to vote today to have it. You are eligible to have a closed session based on threat of litigation. It's up to the board at this point in time.
Yeah, we have it right now.
Don't we have to announce well before?
I'll defer to Jim on the mechanics of that.
The section requires us 2/3 of you, which is 4 of you, make a finding that the item requires immediate attention and did not come to the attention of the board until after the agenda was posted. So to make those 2 findings, you can add closed session.
For myself, I would like to make those findings because I would like to have a closed session. I think we should try to have some finality on this today, rather than putting it off for 2 weeks and expecting everybody to leave work and come back. But I think, depending on the direction the board goes, there is a definite litigation risk, and I think we should have some clarity from county council before the motion is made.
Other views from the board?
I don't feel it's necessary to have a closed session.
Supervisor Callaway?
No.
Supervisor Thomas?
Before I answer that question, what was the outcome of that case that Mr. Rogers cited in Florida?
I'm not familiar with that case. That's the first time I've heard of that case. I only know the
several people have raised the issue of the potential downside, economic downsides of making a decision to the taxpayers and to the county. I view that as pretty essential to framing my view of the subject, and having little information, I should say, before me to inform that. So I hope we have 2/3, but not having that, we will now proceed to a discussion of the merits of the appeal and what we should do about it.
The other option would be to continue this, and we can put the closed session on the regular agenda, if that suits the board's pleasure.
I didn't hear three voices for that, unless anybody wishes to alter their view. Okay, so we move forward. I think of myself as a risk taker sometimes, but this is a little over my willingness to take that. But I think we start with the supervisor whose district this controversy arose from. So Supervisor, at this time it falls to you.
Before we get started here, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Rogers, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Rogers. As stated earlier when Mr. Rogers was giving the presentation, we have had some conversations in regards the scope of this project, and I would like to clarify the information that I thought I heard us talk about. So this is like the poker game, but it's time to call. So we can turn your cards up now. I don't think there's any.
Yep, cards up.
If I understood you correctly, please correct me if I got this wrong, that you were willing to make what I consider to be significant concessions. First of all, that you would settle on a single sign.
Yes.
And that sign would be at the farthest location, which would be where the truck storage yard is now.
Yes.
2 spaces on the sign.
Yes.
No illumination, excuse me.
Correct.
Yeah. And you wouldn't want to put a compressor there because the vandalism would run you out of business.
Yeah.
And also that it permitted, you were not intending to place any additional signs in the county unless this one here.
Correct.
Okay. So those are, I wanted to make sure I was on your side. So thank you very much. Wow. So there's been so much testimony here, and I would like to respond to a lot of those, but time doesn't permit. So I'll try to summarize and leave it at that. For my part, this might be a little bit lengthy. As proposed originally, 3 signs with possibility of 300 feet apart, etc. I was prepared to argue that as strenuously as I could based on the safety issue. Again, there may not be evidence, but I intended to provide evidence. Evidence, of course, not being proof, simply evidence. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physicist, but distraction is a big cause, at least a secondary cause of traffic collisions. Those of you that know me know I've been very familiar with traffic collisions. I've lived at California Highway Patrol for 37 years. And time and speed 300 feet apart would have been dangerous from my point of view. And I brought some statistics to try to verify that. That doesn't seem necessary now. The location where these signs, this sign, excuse me, proposed, is on a straight portion of Highway 12. The straight portion of Highway 12 at that location is just shy of 1/2 mile. Admittedly, there is a moderate vertical curve in that area, which takes away the vision of oncoming traffic for 1 to 2 seconds. However, this 1/2 mile is perfectly straight. Driving conditions are good. I can remember, I've been here for a while too, folks. I've been here for over 40 years. And I can remember when there was a broken yellow line there allowing people to pass. And most of the double yellow lines that we inherited about 15 or 20 years ago were a result of a federal mandate, not our Department of Transportation, and that's when those lines went in. So it's a long, straight portion. Oh, and additionally, with regard to the site for this sign, this is, as has been stated over and over again, a commercial site, and has been developed in the past for various uses. At this point, you folks that are familiar with looking at this site, it is void of visual obstructions or distractions. I mean, there isn't a blade of grass there for a distraction, and that's something that's not going to come back. It's just that way. So what I'm trying to say is, I think the distraction from this sign is very minimal as proposed. So once again, it seems to me we are arguing against our own codes and our staff recommendation. For me, this is getting to be more and more of a habit, and it's one that I'm not comfortable with because I'm used to following statutes. Doesn't mean that there could not be exceptions and so on and so forth, but we're getting into a habit. So I know that we're running late, and a lot of times people get off track, and I seldom do, but I'm going to right now for just a second. I have a little anecdote for you. Sometimes when people age, their driving skills go downhill, and it's up to the Department of Motor Vehicles to make a determination if they should drive or not. So I have this uncle. You have to understand what Portuguese is kind of ugly. So this guy lives in a small community just north of Half Moon Bay. His driving was scary. He's no longer with us, so I can talk about it now. They arranged to have a DMV examiner come out and give him a drive test around his home so he could only kill people in his neighborhood and not kill someone else. So they gave him a drive test. Came back, my cousins told me the DMV examiner's eyes were this big around. I said, what happened? We were driving down the street. There's a stop sign there. He blows through at about 30 miles an hour. Scared the hell out of this guy. So he asked him, "Did you see that stop sign?" "Yeah." "Stupid place for a stop sign." He didn't keep his license, but he did organize some people in the community that agreed with him. Stupid place for a stop sign. The local minority. You know what? The stop sign is still there and they're still writing tickets about it because that's the law. And you have to give that some deference. You have to give that something here. And I understand that there are some people that don't like billboards anywhere. I'm ambivalent about billboards. I have to say that. This is the vegetable theory. A lot of little kids don't like their vegetables. Doesn't mean anything wrong with them. Okay? So, back to point here. This use complies with the current chapter 1782 of our codes. Billboards are permitted by code with approval of a conditional use permit. Those are governed by chapter 1772, which I will not argue needs some work. I think everybody pretty much agrees on that. Most people will agree with that. The planning department staff made the determination that the project is in compliance with 1772. According to the documents I've seen, there is no public comment or evidence to the contrary in the record. If I understand correctly, and there are a couple of attorneys in the room that might be able to correct me here, but denial of this conditional use permit has to be based on findings. I have not seen those findings in the record. Again, I see a group of people who don't like the billboards, and I respect that. And like I said earlier, I think Mr. Rogers and his partner have made significant modifications to the project in deference to that. He's asking to use his property in a legal way. We went through this a couple of weeks ago with a hearing. It seems to me that the appellant here has worked with the county, he's worked with the planning staff, he's worked with the codes for 18 months now, trying to comply with our codes, as he stated. And I have to give great respect to that. Talk about the safety. You know, I received copies of a lot of these emails, folks, and it's really hard to stay on point. Some of them were very well written and very respectful, and some of them were not. So that's just a little aside here. When anybody communicates communicates with me, and I'm assuming with other people that have similar responsibilities. It's really hard to read through personal criticism, exaggerations, and sometimes profanity to get to the point the individual's trying to make. So I just want to put that out there while I'm thinking about it. But I did try to do that. With regard to the content of the signs, I think we've been advised more than once that our Constitution prohibits regulating the content of the signs. So if somebody wants to advertise a local hot dog stand or something else or whatever, as long as it's not an illegal message, we're not going to be able to regulate that, so that's not an issue, at least not for me. And I have a question for planning. If I understand correctly, and maybe I don't even know here, the signing on a building is 1 square foot per lineal foot, or is it square footage of the building?
1 square foot of sign for each lineal foot of building frontage. So if a building is 40 feet wide on the front, you're allowed a 40 square foot sign.
So if a building were erected on this commercial site, how long would the building need to be to have 128 square feet of signage?
128 feet frontage. 128 feet frontage.
So that's pretty small. So I'm just trying to make some analogies here, folks. That's a big chunk of real estate there. A commercial building, 128 feet long, but not even, certainly wouldn't fill up the site. And they can put this sign there. And they can put more signs if they have more buildings. And maybe they will someday. Who knows? I am in support of granting this appeal based on, I could go on here for a long time, but I've decided not to. This applicant appellant has complied with our county rules. I don't think, as far as the timing here, I don't know what you would do about timing. It could be a year, it could be 18 months. It could be until the general plan update is completed, or the community plan. God knows when that will be. But there is no business person going to make an investment knowing up front that it will not be significant time to recoup that investment, to amortize the investment. That is just going crazy. You wouldn't be in business very long. That's like saying you can open a restaurant, spend all that money, but you can only be open for a year. I decided I don't agree with that. But I think this applicant appellant has complied with our codes. He has made significant reductions to his proposal. And I think based on that, we should grant the appeal.
Thank you. Before we move to Supervisor Callaway, I'd like to announce that it is unlikely that we will be holding our hearing on the final budget at 1:30. Instead, I would propose, and we can probably eat a very fast lunch and be back by 2 o'clock. So for those, actually not all of us can, so I think in the effort to compromise and provide some unity, I would propose 2:30 as our budget hearing, as our final budget hearing, if that suits our CAO.
It's all about the department heads, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, for those department heads listening in, please don't come at 1:30 anymore. Try 2:30 and see where we are then.
Would that be today?
That would be today, actually.
Pacific Daylight Time.
Pacific Daylight Time. Supervisor Callaway, your remarks.
Mr. Rogers stated that Commissioner Mason said, how can we deny this project? We can't deny it. It is allowed under M2, yet there is a conditional use permit that's under the code, which is discretionary. It is not a vested right. And under Code 1782, which Supervisor Claudino talked to, this does comply with 17.82, and we have to determine, does it comply or does it not comply? It does comply. Again, it is discretionary and it is not and it does not have to be vested. If we do not put a term limit on it, it becomes a vested right. So I support a vested right. I'm willing to negotiate on what that time frame should look like.
And you're saying not a vested right.
Not a vested. If we don't put a term on it, it's a right. Under the code for 1772, the maximum area allowed is 128 square feet. It does not designate 128 square feet on each side of one billboard. It's 128 feet max. So if you have one sign with two sides, I'm interpreting it as 128 square feet max. So that means each side would be 64 square feet. And there is precedence in this county for that decision on Highway 4. There has been discussion about the general plan and that we're working on it. This has to be addressed in relation to the current general plan. The general plan that we are working on, the current general plan is silent on billboards. The general plan we are now working on, who knows how long that's going to be. Just sort of tweak that one. I'm assuming I'm looking at it as at least 2 to 3 years out before we have a general plan. In fairness to the applicant, we're not asked that Rogers Media wait 2 to 3 years, which is why I want a term limit on the sign. And the community plan has not been updated, so we cannot use the community plan. I mean, I appreciate what was given here about the corridor, so forth, but we're not far enough along on that project either. So I want a term limit. I want 64 square feet on one side if it's two-sided, or 128 square feet on one side if it's going to be a one-sided, because that is what the code allows. And I also accept that there would only be one sign, not 3. So do I need to, is that kind of what's a wrap?
Okay, let me try to summarize where we are so far. Supervisor Claudino favors a overturning of or an upholding of the appeal, I should say, overturning of the planning commission's decision with the number of signs reduced to 1, no lighting, and a specific location. Supervisor Callaway, I assume you agree with the limitations that were implied by Bill's, and in addition suggests a size of 64 square feet if it's two-sided, or 128 if it's one side, and a time duration as yet undefined.
Correct.
Moving to Supervisor Thomas.
Okay, touching a little bit on the planning commission's action on this item. I'm comfortable with the fact that they did turn down the application that they were considering. I don't think that the way that this has been modified, that we're talking about the same application anymore. I think it's been substantially reduced, and so my threshold of anxiety over this application is really brought down. On the issue of the proposal that we wait until the general plan or the community plan is finished to make a determination on this is, as Mr. Mulvaney has said, I think it's grossly unfair and I would think illegal, of course, to do that. So, it stands on its own merit today. We ought to act on it today. Having said that, I think that all of you who know my attitudes about community plans and general plans, I'm very sensitive to the wants and wishes of the people in the community. touring with people to say, that have said, oh my goodness, we don't want to have any more signs here. And I think, because I feel this way, I think that many of the people that have expressed this wish that we not have any more of a proliferation of bad signs, they're focusing on the ones that are right alongside the Highway 12 that were put in 30, 40 years ago that are there by virtue of the fact that they are on a maintenance or a utility easement. It's really a peculiar thing that the railroad property that allowed them to be there, the railroad's gone. It's like something that you can't kill it. You just actually can't kill it. I don't know how to get my hands around that concept that there's something that everybody wants them gone, but we can't get rid of them. So there is that element about this application that we all think in terms of this particular little segment of time. I don't think that the signs that they were all just grimacing about every time we drive by them, they probably weren't as ugly back when they were put in as they are now, because things change. The road gets closer to it, and I can resent the fact that you could roll down your window and slap the sign as you go by, practically. So I am very much in favor of putting a renewable aspect on this particular sign, so that 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 30 years from now, the board won't be in a position where we can't do anything about getting that darn sign moved or getting it farther away from the roadway. So I would be very much in favor of putting a condition on this application or on this approval that the conditional use permit, so that it would be periodically reviewed. And do I see that's okay type of an attitude on that?
Are you saying that if in the future the road changes or there's a change in what's going on there, that we have a right to move that sign?
Excuse me, but right now, the Board of Supervisors
I asked for a response on whether there would be a refusal on that particular item.
Supervisor, if it was framed under a reference that there was specifics as far as the road being moved or other specifics that the county was concerned about, yes. But just as a general blanket statement, no.
Okay, well, I have to think about that one. Thanks for the response. On the issue of the size of the sign, this is really quite a bit, although it's up in the air, it's quite a bit smaller than the offensive looking signs that are closer in town. So I'm not having as much heartburn with this particular size of these particular signs, and the fact that they would be have a message on both sides. I'm generally okay with that. So I would like to hear other comments at this time. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Tryon.
My comments and my feelings basically are identical with Marita's. I guess the big issue is the time horizon. I strongly support the time horizon. I've taken exception with the property rights argument on billboards when it's come before the board. It doesn't come very often, but it does come with quite a few years in between. I guess the exception I take with the property rights argument is that you're putting up a structure on a piece of property whose only function is to influence behavior that goes beyond the property line of the property. It's not to attract people to the property. It's not to build a building or a business or a residence or do farming practice or anything that are associated with the property. That serves merely its total and sole function is to influence behavior that is beyond the property line of the property upon which the billboard is erected. And so it seems to me you can almost have an equal argument of trespass as you can of basically the property right.
billboards. I don't think they should be located outside of the community centers. I think they should be in the community centers where the commerce is located. Quite frankly, I think they should be more directional in nature, which probably means they don't need the same amount of size and scope, etc. But outside of the community centers, I don't think we should be just having lots of, or any, quite frankly, of billboards. I don't see that. I think the advertising for business and the direction to business can be done within the community centers, and let the community plans define that. And outside of the community centers, I'm not in favor of having the county support billboards. So, and I think it's a hard. I think you can make a property rights argument for a billboard, but I think you can make an argument of trespass just as equally as you can a property rights argument. One of the things that I think, regardless of how this discussion turns out today, I think the board, as a consequence of this discussion, should give direction to staff, planning staff, to bring back 17.72, basically banning billboards at this point, or the acceptance of applications for billboards, until we basically have a general plan update and decide what we are going to do with billboards. I mean, quite frankly, I'm arguing a lot of billboards on Highway 4 coming into Angels, or leaving Angels before we come into Murphy's on Highway 4, or putting them on Spence Ranch on the way in to Angels Camp on Highway 49, etc. So I think we need to have a real serious, very serious discussion as to what we want to do with billboards, and that has nothing to do with this application, but I don't think there are any pending applications that I would like to come, hopefully with my support on staff, to say bring back 1772, and let's not accept additional applications for billboards until we really have a clear decision from the board as to what direction we want to go with billboards. But for this application before us now, I support the conditions as outlined by Bill and as added to by Maria.
Thank you, Supervisor Thomas. Excuse me, trying. I have a few comments myself. I do find that we have a lot of conversations that seem to get into what I consider to be sort of absolute positions, that it's either a right or it doesn't exist at all. I find that a difficult conversation when we get into discussions of CUPs. The whole purpose of the CUP, or at least one major purpose of the CUP, is to check in with communities when something comes up that may be outside of their self-concept or beyond the vision that people have for their own communities. I believe in self-determination for these towns. And I think we've heard a lot from the people involved in the planning process, for an enormous number of emails on this topic, almost all of which trended to a position away from billboards. And I do respect that level of community involvement and the volume of input that we've had. And I don't believe that just because you own a property that you can do anything you want with it. I know, for instance, again, I've said this over and over, that in a hot summer day when it's blowing hard, the idea of lighting up a bonfire is pretty much prohibited around here, and for good reason. There are also the whole, we're going to be debating this as a country. I just know in the next 49 days or so, there's going to be a lot of discussion about the question of whether government should play any role in determining anything at all. We've had this discussion for the last 30 years, and we've deregulated a number of industries, and we thought, just get government the heck out of the way, and the market will make things right for us. Well, ask the housing market, ask the loan ask the banking industry, ask the global markets how that worked out, and you can get some sense of my view about carrying that past the point of reason. Now, what is reasonable here? Well, personally, I think today Supervisor Tryon is eminently reasonable, and we ought to take a look at what the statute or our own rules call for. And I would suggest that it does need to look at. We do have strong views, and 85% of people in District 2 have stated very strongly they want to maintain a rural environment. And frankly, a string of billboards. I know I'm home when I get through the gauntlet of billboards that go up between Valley Springs and where Highway 26 cuts off at 12. I know when I make that turn that I'm back in a rural place. I don't think billboards, I don't think there's anything progressive about a billboard, old or new. Actually, in all the pictures that I saw, the only one that kind of struck me as consistent with the community values of Valley Springs as expressed in the meetings I've attended down there is the covered wagon with the little sign on it. Now that's innovation. Claudino talked about a 90-year-old, and I want to talk for a moment about an 18-year-old, my daughter. For people who think the billboards are progressive, I got news for you. The next generation isn't going to pay any attention to much beyond their computer screens to get information about where they're going to go shop or what their business is. My view is we're changing, and that this is kind of, in her mind, this would be a very retro, old-fashioned, old guy conversation. So I don't know whether our businesses are thinking ahead or whether we're looking back, but this is a discussion that probably will be moot within one generation's term. That said, I agree with Tryon. We ought to take a look at this. We ought to not do billboards between now and the time that we move forward. And I also agree with him that that's not relevant for the conversation before us today. So in sum, I agree that we should modify the number as we're proposing. I very much want to very appreciative of the flexibility shown and what I consider to be responsiveness of the proponent here on the lighting and the number of signs. I'd like to see what Supervisor Callaway and Thomas have to say about duration, and I am interested in a question of size, but I would propose that we find the specifics on those two, that we have a motion, and that we also poll the board after that on Supervisor Tryon's suggestion.
I just would feel much more comfortable about voting affirmatively on this if it had a review date, and we propose 10 years.
That's too long.
Supervisor Callaway, you raised the subject. Do you have time?
Yeah, I did. I had 1 year, but because there is precedent for that in Valley Springs. And those of you who've been in Valley Springs long enough know that it was 1 year for DeMarco in the real estate sign. I can't get remember. So I'm going to say, and it's not a review, it's a new application for conditional use permit. This conditional use permit needs an ending date, and I'm going to go with what I think is going to take us to do the general plan, and that'll be 3 years.
Well, something like 3 years, because that should.
That's what I said.
Oh, excuse me. That was mine.
Was 3 years, because I think in 3 years we'll have the general plan. So that at that time they would have to reapply for a conditional use permit. It ends. It is not vested. It is not a review. It's starting again. Unless there's a community plan that has been approved, which we already know will follow the general plan. That's the priority. Oh, and I need to make it clear when they or whoever comes back for for a conditional use permit, they have to follow what the codes are at that time, not what they are today if this sign goes in. So if 1772 changes or the general plan is no longer silent, then they have to apply by the dates at that time. So it's not this grandfather. I need to get back also to the size. I mean, I had that issue in the Evans Pass corridor. They wanted the size of the sign to be 128, I think it was a two-sided sign. And it was 64 on one side or 128, two sides. The code 1772 says the maximum area. Just because there's two sides to the billboard, it is not the maximum area on each side. It's the maximum area of this structure that happens to have something on two sides. And it's, as I understand, the board can interpret it that way.
Rita, just a quick clarification. Is the location of the sign where requested, is that anticipated to be within the community plan area of Valley Springs? My feeling is it's not. Misunderstood.
Yes, it is within the Valley Springs community.
Okay, so the community plan then would be able to address it. Okay, that answers my question.
Okay,
I don't interpret that section that way, and I don't know if I'm right or not, but I would interpret that myself. I mean, 128 square feet of visible advertising.
I don't think we can answer the question. I think it's up to the boards to interpret.
That's how I see it. You cannot see both sides. That's how I interpret it. You can't see both sides of the sign at the same time. And that would
It doesn't
mean
use the word "see" in here.
it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say it. It doesn't not say it.
Okay, one at a time, please, and clearly we have more than one interpretation.
Can't anybody else have the last word?
No, it's not, but either of you will, because we've got several other people to weigh in on that particular question. Let's take these a bit at a time. On the question of size, we have one view of 128 each side, one view of 128 at one side and 64 on two sides. What's your view?
I'm with Supervisor Clayton.
I'm with Marie with 64. It's two-sided.
I actually have no idea and want to know whether we're going to get sued on this, but I don't know why.
Let me just cut to the chase for you. It's our stern view, it's codified in your ordinance, and it's 128 per side. Anything less than that, I mean, we're not going to accept that. And the reason why isn't because we're trying to be untouched. You won't be able to see it from the road.
It's useless to put up that size of sign.
It's a 55-mile-an-hour road right there. You're not going to see an 8x8 sign. You'd have actually cause more problems by having 8x8 than having a larger sign. Yeah, the industry standard at that speed is actually 128 plus. We're doing the smallest sign we possibly could in the county that would make sense to an advertiser to be attracted.
Okay, well, hold on a second. I'm turning to the county council for his view on the interpretation of the code here.
The ordinance says billboards of a maximum area of 128 square feet. That's all it says. It doesn't say per side. And as I say, I don't think my office has an answer for that. I think that's up to the board to determine.
Here's the way you can do that. You know, you can put two signs right next to each other. One facing east, one facing west. And avoid that. I mean, come on. I think one of the speakers talked about shabby politics. I don't want to go in that direction, and I think it's really dishonest to approve this appeal and put conditions on it that make it impossible, obviously impossible, for the economy to do business. That's what you can't approve something that is not viable and then expect it to be okay.
Well, in the Evans Pass corridor, we had just this issue. And
You may, but I'm saying from my.
Yes, sir, we're back with the board and the colloquy
and that's
ended on
how
that
it
topic.
was interpreted, and that's what it was interpreted. And the sign that went up was 64 square feet on Highway 4.
You're going to increase the distraction if you put the print smaller. Right? You just are. And no advertiser is going to advertise on a sign where there's not enough information to advertise their business. And so I don't see how making the sign 30 feet into the property, not illuminated, so on and so forth, and put enough information on there to advertise a business and not have drivers squinting to see it.
Well, I'm going to have to overcome 17 generations of, I had spoken earlier on another subject today about the contrarian nature of my heritage. And I actually, when people threaten a lawsuit, my immediate contrarian reaction is to say to heck with that. And I really haven't appreciated that aspect of this discussion. Nevertheless, as this ordinance is read to me, it seems to speak in the area of defining the 128 as the area of the billboard itself, not the signage aspect of it. So I'm going to take that position, and it would be 128, whether it's one-sided or other-sided. I'm also, I guess, living up to my contrarian nature by contradicting my own views of billboards, which I think we shouldn't have any. And I really hope that we will move very quickly on Supervisor Tryon's suggestion as soon as we get done with this. But we have several other things to determine. One is the next one. We've now decided 128, because it's 3 votes for that. We have a proposal for 3 years as a renewal for this. It's a sunset, essentially a sunset, and it would be subject to the conditions at the time.
Correct.
So I'd like to hold the board on that. Supervisor Thomas.
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
What if the general plan is not done in 3 years? Why don't we tie it to the adoption of the general plan?
My thinking is if the general plan is not done in 3 years, we might have an update to 1772. The board in 3 years can decide that they want to extend the conditional use permit for 6 months or a year, because hopefully we'll be close to completing the general plan. I mean, you all are the ones who wanted 2 years, and I'm thinking, did I say that? So, I mean, I'm hoping that there has to be, we have a general plan of 3 years, because that will then give us 5.5 years of working on the general plan.
3 years from when?
3 years from today.
Okay, Supervisor Flavino. Okay, Supervisor.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so there will be.
Can we address it?
Sure, but we are taking.
We'll make it really quick. In all honesty, in 3 years, we won't have made a penny on the sign. It'll take 3 years to amortize the sign at this point. These are not inexpensive signs. We are paying a homeowner something to be there, a landowner. And we also have to find advertisers, unless we want to charge someone an outrageous amount, which we don't want to do. We won't even break even in 3 years. So it's 5 years minimum before we break even with a sign. There are reasons that they're there as long as they're there.
The other point that I would mention is to Commissioner Tronon's point, you guys will ban billboards in your discussions in the next 12 months. So then we are forced to live under that ordinance in 3 years. So de facto, you're doing exactly what ex-Commissioner Mulvaney is doing. You're basically giving us an approval that we cannot live with. You're giving us something we cannot act on. It's really a de facto denial.
All right, thank you.
Perhaps the idea of review in 10 years, a review, as discussed.
Well,
that we can review the sign.
All right, but we're now making the proposals.
Okay.
We appreciate your input, and I would ask, we have so far had 3 people favor 1, 3 years, and 1 opposed to that. Is there any change given the input on that? So,
I just want to say that if this passes with a 3-year time period, it is exactly as the gentleman described, in fact, over. Not appeal. My colleagues, if that's what they feel, just suck it up and deny the appeal.
well, I would be willing to live with a 5-year under the circumstances, but there are 3 votes for a 3-year. So,
Well, I started with a 10, thinking that that might be a period of time when I would vote for that. Excuse me?
I would vote for that.
We're all about compromises today, so I think that I could share your position of 5 years as a reasonable date to take a look at
We need to be clear on what it is that is going to occur in 5 years.
Yes.
Not a review, it's an end of conversation, the right is over, it's a new
it's
application.
a sunset
It's a
provision with a renewal possibility under whatever the code and ordinances at the time would be.
It's not an extension or a review.
All right, so 5, 5, 10, we're at 3 and 3. And would anybody?
No, that's fine.
Yes. So
I
two.
could go with 5.
Okay, so that's 3.
As long as it's under, as Maria states it to be. I don't want it just to be a review that cannot be, sort of basically, denied. It's not a review, it's a new application.
Okay, I understand that. We're now moving on to the question. We have size, 128. Duration, 5 years. Renewal based on existing conditions at the time. We have lighting, number, and location already agreed upon. So do I hear a motion?
I think we can get about as fair as it can possibly be as far as what we've offered. And at this point, in all honesty, what you're offering is nothing. Because as I just said, and I wasn't making it up, we will not break even this time in 5 years. We will not. Okay. The idea of reviewing it in 10 years would be great. But what you're asking us to agree to is something that basically is nothing. And you might agree to it today, but we will not. Okay, so we will come back.
This is unacceptable.
It is not acceptable to us. It might be in your discussion, but we will have to do something about it. And we will not bring back 1. We will bring back 3. Okay. So I think we've worked pretty hard at making compromises. I really do. And I don't think we're being unfair in our approach. But 3 or 5 years, neither one of those make any sense for anything. If you ask the restaurant to be guaranteed you for 3 years and be closed after 3, or 5 years, or 10, how about the process of reviewing it after 10 years? And if it is a blight to the community, I think everyone will know that. I say the existing billboards you have right now are a blight. And if I own one of those, I would agree with you to take it down, because it's worthwhile to take down. However, I don't think this will be. I think you're going to find that it will add to your community. It'll be used by local advertisers, okay? Not someone out of town. We're not going to light it. We're not going to build more. But we need to have one that can build, not a partial one. 5 years is not worth building. It isn't. It won't be built. Okay? But we will come fight for 2 more.
I think Supervisor...
It's not a threat at all.
I think Supervisor Claudino's correct. And, either suck it up or do it. So I move to deny the appeal.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Is there a proposal along the lines of the combination of what got 3 votes for each of the items? Okay, and let me repeat what I believe that proposal to be. The proposal being made by Supervisor Triumph is that the size of one billboard would be 100 up to 128 square feet. That the duration be 5 years. That the location be as proposed, which was further, I think, how was it?
Site number one.
Site number one, furthest from town, that it not be lit, and that it have local advertisers. And have, we don't have local, okay, well, that's a volunteer position by the proponent.
Actually, I would suggest that we not take that part of the offer if we're going to accept it, because we don't regulate the content of the signs.
Okay.
And also,
I think that's already been slapped down.
yes, and I also suggest that the action you're taking needs to be supported by the resolution and the conditions of approval prepared by staff of the planning commission, was not adopted by the planning commission as amended by your action. We need a resolution adopted into the actual CUP, if that's what you're going to do.
Right.
So I can incorporate that in my motion?
Yes.
Okay, then I will so incorporate in my motion. And the one thing I'll.
Findings. That's the staff findings.
Yes. Just some clarification on the fact that this has agreed that we agree to that there will be a result.
So the 5 years is effectively a sunset clause on the CUP. All right, there's a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion,
Wait a minute. Okay, so that dies for lack of a second.
No, that's what we all agreed to. I'll second that motion.
Okay.
What was agreed to.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
no.
Okay, so 3-2, that passes. And we are now concluded with this portion of today's meeting. We will resume with the final budget hearing at 2:30. And